Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show. Today I have on with me, making a return appearance, to preview the NBA Finals, Jamieson Welsh. How are you doing today, Jamieson?
I'm good. No complaints. It's my 26th birthday today, so I'm just happy I made the 26.
Hey, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
How are you enjoying the birthday?
Oh, man. Well, I'll be at the Dodger-Angel game at Dodger Stadium later tonight with some friends I've had for a very long time, and also I'll be on Twitter checking out the game because you know how Twitter is. Whenever a big NBA game's going on, Twitter will keep you informed, that's for sure.
So, you're choosing baseball over Game 1 of the Finals, I take it?
Well, yes, only because these tickets were planned ahead of time. This event was planned ahead of time. It wasn't like a last-minute decision. The last NBA Finals game I missed was Game 5 of the 2004 Finals, which was my high school graduation, which was Shaq's last game as Lakers. So
I think the last one, I think I was watching NBA or ESPN Classic this morning. Yeah, believe it or not, I was watching ESPN Classic this morning. Yeah, I'd never watched that. But the game that was on was the 2007 Finals with LeBron versus the Spurs.
the Spurs, right.
That was the only Finals I think I don't remember watching one single game of because it was so bad.
Yeah, well, it was really unfair. LeBron, he won the East with pretty much himself and a lot of other roles got hot at the right time, but really it was really about him dismantling Detroit, which was huge. San Antonio, they have 3 Hall of Famers on their team and, the best coach in the league at that time, and, Popovich, but it was just unfair. I mean, it wasn't a fair matchup to begin with, but I do remember that series very well. I remember watching that series, and it just wasn't fair. I mean, LeBron didn't have any help in the series, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Well, he had no help. I mean, I was watching the game, and it was just, I just forget how, I remember why I didn't want the Spurs in the finals this year because of how boring and dragged out those finals were with them after David Robinson retired. Because that finals with Detroit that was awful.
It was awful, but you know what? Those games were relatively close games.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
The series itself was actually a good series. It's just the brand of basketball wasn't entertaining per se. But I believe Game 5 was probably one of the best finals games of the last decade or so.
Yeah.
Where I believe Robert Horry went nuts in the fourth quarter. And I know he had a big 3. I believe either to go ahead or send it to overtime. But yeah, he had a really big 3. He had a lot of big shots in that fourth quarter. But no, that Game 5 was a really good game. But no, it was a series, but the brand of basketball, the type of basketball was very boring. And that's what, unfortunately, that's what Spurs basketball is up until this year. This year, it was fun and entertaining.
Oh, yeah. And this year, even this year, it was, you kind of knew, once you learn to know what to expect from the Spurs, you're pleasantly surprised when you get something different. And that's kind of what this team has brought in the last, say, year and a half or so. They're more athletic. Duncan has, obviously, he's become more of basically what David Robinson was at the end of his career, but still I would say more productive than David Robinson at the end of his career.
Right.
But it's still a lot of fun to see how these guys are able to. It's just interesting to see the way guys break down now versus how they would break down in, say, the 90s. Because, you look at, a Ewing, you look at Karl Malone never really broke down, but, Barkley, I guess, the guys that broke down, they got old, and they got old in a hurry.
Well, you got to remember, all those guys went to school for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So they already had mileage on them before they even came into the league. Now it's different because guys aren't staying in college that long, maybe 1 or 2 years at the most, and then you also have better medical technology.
Well, and you would think it would be they would break down at an earlier age because they're playing like 82 games when they're 19 versus only 33 games, though. Like, I mean,
yeah, but you also have to realize as well as technology and studies have advanced, there's ways of training guys and conditioning guys, their bodies for the wear and tear at an early age, and there's certain nutritional plans guys are on, there's certain strength and conditioning plans guys are on to make sure their bodies don't break down. Where back in the day, it really wasn't like that. I mean, guys trained hard and whatever, but it wasn't as, let's say, it wasn't as specialized as it is today. Today you have trainers, nutritionists, doctors, and they all help one specific athlete. And with technology being the way it is, guys are able to be healthy a lot longer than back in the day.
Yeah, and they may be going to strip clubs and stuff after the games nowadays, but they're not going to the Gold Club in Atlanta like Ewing and Larry Johnson.
Strip clubs. They're still
yeah.
I know some people that saw a couple Lakers in a strip club in New Orleans this year. So they're still going to strip clubs. That's still there. The thing that happened with Ewing is that he got unlucky because I was in Atlanta, I believe. That club, something happened with the IRS and the feds came in, and then they had to pull the records of all the big spenders, and I believe it was him and Andrew Jones and a couple other guys. But yeah, I remember that.
Well, the funny thing about that whole thing was Dikembe Mutombo was involved too, and it was like, huh? Dikembe Mutombo.
Strip clubs don't discriminate, man. I mean, hey, guys, we're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that it's wrong that he was there. I'm just saying it's just. Can you imagine like a woman giving a lap dance to Dikembe Mutombo like that? That just like.
It doesn't sound right, but at the same time, he's a multi-millionaire. He's probably made close to $100 million in his career, if I'm not mistaken. So you know what their objective is.
That's true.
You know what their objective is. They're trying to pay off student loans.
Oh yeah. They're doing their own thing, and I totally respect it. They're great at what they do.
That's right.
Now this finals, I'd put this. I mean, we got what we wanted. Everybody wanted LeBron, whether you're a Heat fan or not. Everybody was secretly wanting, if LeBron was going to make it to the finals, they wanted LeBron versus Durant, because the moment has passed with LeBron versus Kobe. And
yeah, that matchup is gone. That will probably never happen.
No, it won't happen. And even if it does happen, it'd be kind of like a Magic versus Jordan thing, where the time for that had passed when the matchup actually happened.
Right.
And now, I mean, we got LeBron versus Durant. With this matchup, with LeBron going 1 and Durant going 2 in the draft, and then Odin and Darko going before and after those two respectively. What is your take? Who was more ruined by? Would you say that Bynum or that Odin was ruined by injuries more so than Darko was ruined by Larry Brown? Or what's your take on those two?
Odin, for instance, Odin was hurt before he even got to the league.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so to me, knowing the history of big guys in the league, you have to be very, very careful about knee injuries to big guys because they don't get better over time. They don't. They wear down. They get worse. At the time, I was one of the few people that wanted to take Kevin Durant 1 because you knew what you were getting. You knew what you were getting, and you knew there wasn't any health risk there. The thing that scared me about Greg Oden was that Portland pretty much knew they were picking him, and he wasn't going to be able to play right away. And that was kind of scary. Whenever a 19 or 20-year-old guy has to get knee surgery from the gate, that's kind of skeptical. That's a car from the lot, and you have to go buy a new transmission.
Right.
You know, there's something not right about that. Something kind of shaky about that. Darko, on the other hand, Carmelo Anthony, who had just won a national championship there at Hughes, and his stock was never higher than it was at that point in time, and he was the second best player at the time. I mean, he was the guy you draft at number 2, and he was the reason why the Pistons, honestly, their run ended so as it did, because they have Carmelo with that team. They're probably still a contender.
Well, do you think that if you're in that situation, if you're the Pistons, you're coming off a conference finals appearance, and you have the number 2 overall pick, which it never happened. I mean, that never happened.
It really happens.
And unless you're the Celtics and it's rigged. And
right.
I mean, now, they had the second overall pick. Do you think in hindsight, maybe they trade back and stockpile a couple more, do something like the Spurs did, and get
that would have been more. That would have been smart.
Get like a
teams really don't realize, or things teams really don't do when they're a contender and they're fighting for a championship, when they have a veteran core of guys, is they fail to get younger, and that's why a lot of teams burn out quickly. A lot of teams stick with their veterans maybe a year too long, and then you see in the playoffs where they could have used an energy guy here or there. And that's exactly what happened with Detroit. They just didn't have enough guys. The mileage adds up. When you're going to like 6 or 7 straight conference finals, those miles add up on those guys, and it becomes harder to play with the young guys. I mean, it becomes harder to play against LeBron James, who's 23 at the time, or go against a Celtics team that's healthy and hungry. But in hindsight, it would have been better to trade back, even trade back to like 5. They could have got Chris Bosh. They could have traded back to 5 and probably got another first rounder with Toronto and got Chris Bosh. I mean, there could have been totally different things they could have done. But at the same time, Joe Dumars hasn't done anything smart since.
Well,
that trade. I mean, that draft pick. I mean, ever since then, it's pretty much been downhill.
Well, they could have gotten like you said, the Chris Bosh. They could have gotten a Chris Kaman. I mean,
right.
There was anything they could have done. I mean, that draft was so stacked. Looking at it, I mean, even if they had like traded back and gotten a Josh Howard, I mean, anything, any number of things they could have done where that team doesn't get. I mean, they could have been set up for the next, 10 years with a center. And I don't think he would have been. The problem probably more so was Larry Brown, because he never works well with young guys.
He doesn't, but at the same time, you need to have talent. He works well with talent. If you have talent on your team, he can work with that. It's usually young guys that can't play that he doesn't work well with.
Right.
But when you have the number 2 pick and you strike out, when you whiff on that pick completely, and we've seen that recently, it sets your franchise back. When Memphis seemed to be second overall, they didn't really set them back because they made a couple of trades, but that's something where if you pick well at that pick, that puts your franchise to a contender, an elite contender status. Same thing with Miami when they selected Beasley number 2 overall. I mean, at the time it was a good pick because he was really good in college, but when you whiff on that pick, it hurts the franchise. You can't look for that pick. That's when you try to enhance your franchise. You cannot take a gamble there, and that's what Detroit did, and they lost, and look what's happened since.
Now, with this, who would you say is a bigger bust than Thabit or Darko?
Thabit by far.
Yeah, that.
By far. He was in the D-League, and he is just, he's probably not going to be, someone will probably give him another shot, but Darko's halfway decent at playing basketball. There's certain things he can do. And I believe he's actually had a few good games the last couple of years. But he doesn't belong on a basketball court.
No, he doesn't. It's sad to say, but he's had a worse career than the other 7-footer out of UConn that was supposed to be good, Hilton Armstrong.
Armstrong and Josh Boone.
And Josh.
Both those guys. And I'm a UConn fan. I'm a big UConn fan for a very long time. So I've seen all these 7-foot guys come out and do a whole lot. But it seemed to be the thing that kind of scared me was in college. Durant Blair at like 6'5" was just dominating him.
Mm-hmm.
Dominating him. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, there's no way this guy's ready for the NBA. There's just no way. And then when Memphis drafted him number 2, I was like, yeah, that's not a really good idea because he's not a franchise changer. When you draft a guy at number 2, you have to be a franchise changer. You got to be a guy that's going to increase the value of the franchise, not kill it, and that's what he did.
That's a value pick, not a. It's not an It's an investment. It's not a best player available situation or a.
Yeah, it's not the second round.
Yeah, or actually, they did the tallest available player.
Right.
Okay. So with this NBA final, you get LeBron, we get Durant. I think I can't remember it was probably on ESPN where. It was Malone and Jordan. It was the last time. That was the last time there was a scoring champion versus the NBA MVP. That was the last time that matchup had happened. How do you like this shaping up this time around with the MVP versus the scoring champion? Because the last time that happened, the MVP lost. Do you think the MVP loses again?
I do, and it won't be LeBron's fault.
Okay.
If the Heat lose, it's going to be on everyone else. It's going to be on Dwayne Wade, Bosh, and the rest of those guys. LeBron's going to do his thing. I don't have a problem. I don't see him struggling in his finals. He's going to be fine. But the thing that concerns me the most about the Heat and also LeBron is that when OKC goes Westbrook, Harden, Durant on the floor at the same time, there's going to be a mismatch for OKC on the floor.
Right.
Someone like Betty is going to be on Harden, or Betty is going to be on Durant, and that's just a matchup you just can't have because when you have explosive players like those three, they can go off at any time, and any mismatch there is, they're just going to take advantage of it. And that's one thing the Thunder do well. The other teams don't. Is they take advantage of the mismatches every game, and they're either at the free throw line, getting wide open threes, or just getting easy buckets.
Do you think that with this squad of Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, and you can and even Ibaka, yeah, I mean that's a legit big four you have, and is that the best drafted 4 guys in an NBA history together? Because like the Celtics, they didn't draft Robert Parrish, and there's who would you say this is the best group of 4 that have been drafted?
Definitely the best group of 4 that have been drafted in back-to-back years.
Yeah.
Or back-to-back years. That's like I said earlier in a different podcast. You usually don't hit home runs on every first-round pick. You may hit one here and strike out there, but they have hit home runs on every first-round pick they've had, and it's definitely the best so far that I've seen in my lifetime. I've never seen a team have 4 first-rounders that have produced like this. I haven't seen it.
Well, and it always happens like there needs to be 3 coaching changes. 3 of the guys have to be traded, and then something starts to click with the superstar. Nothing like that has had to happen. PJ Carlissimo was the original coach of this team, and he got fired. But it's not like they didn't just give up so quickly and then just blow it all up. They got the right coach in there. They got a guy that's a scrapper, that's a fighter, as a coach, and it's rare to see a group of players buy into that system that are this young. And do you think that how long do you think that their run can last? Is this going to be? do they have the potential to have a Jordan-esque run because of their personality more so than their talent?
And a lot of it stems from Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant is one of the most humble guys there is. He's a guy that he's very likable, so he doesn't have a huge ego. I mean, every superstar has an ego to an extent, but he doesn't have a huge ego, and he welcomes those guys in. He's not shying away like other superstars do. He's welcoming their help in and their skill set in, so it's not, you don't see a whole lot of conflict. I believe they're going to have to amnesty Perkins in order to have a run, because you got to keep those four together. You can always find a 7-footer or a big guy that can do the little dirty work for a cheaper price than you're paying Perkins, who I believe is getting paid $8 million a year. They have to keep that four together. They have to. If they keep that four together, the Western Conference is on lock for at least, at minimum, 5 to 7 years. At minimum.
Does this Miami? They never use the amnesty clause. Do you think if they lose this series, that they wind up using it on a Bosh or a Dwayne Wade? Anyway,
they'll never use it on one of those guys because they have too much value.
Okay.
They have way too much value in what they can bring back in a trade. I can see them using the amnesty on Mike Miller because his contract is like $6 million a year. Because he signed for the full mid-level exception back in, I believe, 2010 as well. So I can see them amnestying him because that would help them free up money to go get a legit big man. But I don't see them amnestying one of their big three because realistically, you can trade and get back a lot of value. Same thing with Bosh. You can trade him and get back a lot of value. So you only amnesty someone when you can't get anything back, and you're almost like just giving it away at that point.
Would you say that they're in a, like, I mean, it's Miami's basically in the same predicament they were that, I mean, LeBron's in the same predicament he was in Cleveland. I mean,
very similar.
I mean,
very similar.
They're in their cap. I mean, they have bad contracts with. I mean, I'm not Dwayne Wade and his name and Chris Bosh are not bad contracts, even though you probably could have gotten Chris. You should have been able to get Chris Bosh for a little cheaper, but when you talk up a guy his value and then overpay him, that's on you. I mean, that's Isaiah Thomas 101 there. But
I know you're very familiar with that.
Yes, I am. I'm all too familiar with that strategy. But I mean, you look at Miami. Their cap strap. They can't go out and make. Nobody's going to make a trade with them because they have nothing they can give back, other than Dwayne Wade and Bosh, and they didn't want to. They're not going to part with them right off the bat.
Right.
And, I mean, nobody wants any of the garbage pieces they have. Like, nobody's going to want to take on Eddie Curry, even if it.
Hampton, New York has one or even one like that.
Yeah, actually, somebody would take a chance on Haslam. I think they're too in love with They're overly in love with Haslam that it's really hurt their team. And I mean, even if they had not signed Bosh and just gone with a Haslam, they would have been fine because they could have signed, I don't know, just a couple more pieces like a Kyle Korver instead of a Mike Miller, because Kyle Korver would have been much more. He's never as banged up as Mike Miller. He's more. He can play better defense than Mike Miller, which is saying something because Kyle Korver doesn't play any defense. And I mean, what would you do going into this offseason if you're the Heat and you're coming off back-to-back finals losses? Obviously, you're close. You just need maybe 3 or 4 role players that can give you, I don't know, 10 points.
They have a 2-year window because in 2 years LeBron has an opt-out clause in his contract, and I've been a believer since day one, since the day he signed that contract in Miami, that he was only going to be there for 4 years. I didn't see him being there for 7. I didn't see him being a guy that would want to be locked down for another 7 years. I believe they have a 2-year window, and if I'm Pat Riley, I do whatever it takes to get a guy like Chris Kaman in. If you have to sign him for mid-level exception, whatever you have to do, you have to get him in. if you have to amnesty someone or just straight out dump Joel Anthony for a second round pick, just to clear up space, you have to do what you have to do. Because you know that Dwayne Wade's getting older, and LeBron, the minutes he's played, has definitely taken a toll on him. I mean, he's still a great player that he is. But at the same time, you can't expect him to play 45 minutes a game going into his 10th and 11th year in the league. I mean, that just doesn't work. His body's going to break down eventually.
Well, you could. I mean, I think that's that might be the outlook they have, because they're. I mean, I don't even know who's going to deal with them. That's like, I mean, they might end up having to do a trade like Wade and Bosch for Tyreek Evans and or like DeMarcus Cousins and Tyreek Evans or something like that.
It will never get that bad.
It won't get that.
Never get that bad. I don't see them trading both Wade and Bosch in the same deal.
Oh, it won't. It won't get that bad.
If they do lose, it's going to be because of they'll probably get rid of Bosch. I don't see them getting rid of D-Wade because he's the franchise, and he's going to have his number retired one day in Miami. There's going to be a ceremony, and there's going to be Gabrielle Union there on the sidelines, and they're going to put his number up in the Raptors, and that's just how it is. If they lose, it's going to be probably Bosch is going to be the fall guy, even though it's not deserved, but that's how it is sometimes. I see them. I think they give this group one more run, only because Bosch wasn't fully healthy for the playoffs, the full run. But at the same time, you have to really realize that they're getting older, and I think the groups coming up, or younger, those superstars that are coming up that are chasing them are a lot younger than they are.
Are you taking if you're Miami, what would be the first thing you do? Get rid of Spoelstra or amnesty Mike Miller?
Amnesty Mike Miller in a heartbeat. Because Spoelstra, through all the adversity, he has proven that he can kind of calm things down, because there's been a lot of rocky situations there over the last year, almost 2 years. There's been a lot of rocky situations, and he's proven that he's able to kind of control things for the most part. So, and it's really not on him. I mean, his adjustments could be better, his defensive set, or his offense would be better, but my thing is, if you fire Ostra, you can't just go out there and get a legendary coach. I mean, there's only a coach that could really fit in that role and do better. I mean, remember, taking the teams to back-to-back.
Right.
That's a huge accomplishment in itself. I mean, they're being a bust, but at the same time, slow things down and say, hey, like, whoever we bring in has to win the championship, and that's no guarantee, because the guys have to learn a new system.
Do you think it's more does he get more credit than he deserves for the way he's handled the adversity, though? Because if you look at it, I mean, they weren't really, like, I wouldn't say, ESPN dramatizes everything, which that's their job. I mean, they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to make storylines. They're supposed to do this and that, and that's the only time I will defend ESPN on that, which is, it's not good, but I mean, it gets people to watch. It gets people interested in the games. They have to do it. But if you look at the games just as a whole, like, do you think that there was really that much panic when they got down to the Celtics that they needed to deal with? Like, do you think those?
No, because they're a veteran team, and when you have veterans, especially guys that have been to the finals and been through playoff wars, they know what to do. It's not like they're all 22-23 and they're down 32 and everything's crashing upon them. They knew what they had to do to take advantage of that series and to get back and actually eventually win that series. But at the same time, you learn from you take how you play for your coach. Spoelstra is an intense guy, but he's a quiet guy at the same time. A lot of people want a rah guy, but if that's not who your coach is, that's not what you're going to get. I think Spoelstra did a really good job in just controlling things, because we've seen in the past where teams, get down 3-2 and all hell breaks loose and their season's over.
What?
For whatever reason it may be. So he did a really good job, and just getting the team in a situation to say, hey, we're going to win these next 2 games, and that's going to be that. Of course, depending on the historic performance helped, but at the same time, hey, part of it has to go to coaching. I mean, we can't discount. And when you go to back-to-back finals, I don't care what teams you have, the coach has to get some credit for that. That's just how it is.
Well, and as much criticism as the East, the East has been. It's not the best. It's top to bottom. It's weak, but at the top, it is a beast, and it's been that way for the last couple of years. And and you look at it, the only teams to make it to back-to-back finals in the last 10 years have been in the last 12 years, have been the Heat and the Pistons. And nobody has, if you look at this generation of talent, you got guys like LeBron, who's not really he's worried, he's got to worry about his legacy and so on. But to be able to mentally mold those guys to follow a guy, everybody says he's not a leader of men. I completely agree with that. But he has been able to get them, maybe not to follow his way, but he's at least gotten them to come together at the right times and not let everything fall apart at the seams. So,
and that's part of coaching. Like, people think coaching's all X's and O's.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I completely disagree. Like, coaching is just like managing employees at work. You have to be able to know personalities. You have to be able to calm certain situations down. You have to be able to relate to certain players differently than others. And that part, I think he's done pretty well all day considering when there's been a camera in his face for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think it would have been a better call to maybe give this over at, not now, but when it first started, not to Pat Riley, but somebody that has dealt with those personalities before? Because,
well, looking back on it, of course you want a more experienced guy,
right,
if possible, but Pat Riley himself was an inexperienced guy when he took over the Lakers back, I want to say, 82, when he won his first championship with them. So, guys just have to learn. Phil Jackson wasn't always an experienced coach.
No.
All these great coaches. Doc Rivers in 2007 was one of the worst coaches of all time. And now we look at Doc as the best coach, the second best coach in the league. So it takes time. Just like players mature, coaches do as well. And that's the thing we kind of have to realize, that they're not going to automatically click for them. But with time, it should click. They should improve, and it should get better. And the group they have, they should make it happen.
Who's going to be in that next wave of coaches? Like, whenever there's a coaching change now, or whenever a big job comes open, it's Pat Riley, it's Phil Jackson, it's Larry Brown, it's I don't know. And then there's George Karl, who will always be available at some point. Don Nelson was that way for a while. Who's in that next wave? Lenny Wilkins, even, until he retired a few years back. But who's in that next wave of coaches that's going to be like those guys that are always getting jobs, that are always on the everybody's wish list? Because at some point, as bad as it sounds, Phil Jackson and Pat Riley are either going to be in a nursing home, they're not going to be able to coach, they're going to be too old to do anything. And at some point, somebody's just got to give somebody a chance. And it's going to be, I think Doc Rivers is in that category. Who else do you think's in that category?
Oh, well, there's guys that have been hired several times already. They're not really necessarily good coaches, but they've gotten jobs, a couple of jobs after having bad performances. One guy that comes to mind is Mike Dunleavy. I think he was an awful coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why he keeps on getting jobs or even interviews, but his name has always been surrounding openings. But for the new cast of guys, you're going to see Scott Brooks, Tom Thibodeau. His name was going to be thrown around. He's a solid coach. Those three are going to be in the next, 5 to 10 years. Those names are going to be linked to every job. Even with Tom Thibodeau in Chicago, he's going to be there a while. But at the same time, when you're a really good coach, your name is linked to everything.
Well,
Same thing with Scott Brooks. He should be with the Thunder. I believe he's an unrestricted free agent after this finals, but his name's going to be linked to the jobs, even though he's going to be the coach of the Thunder.
Well, and I mean, you look at with Scott Brooks. I mean, it's not a matter of. I mean, actually, with just about any of these guys, it's not how much they do right now. It's more so how they relate to their star player for the next 2 years, and that all depends. I mean, Scott Brooks is in probably the best situation because he's gotten this team to the finals. You can't argue with his results as a coach, and you can't argue that he is not. This organization is not where it is right now without him, and I think the players realize that. The ownership definitely realizes that, and eventually it's going to come down to how much money are they willing to pay a coach in OKC, or how much money do they have to spend on a guy like Scott Brooks in OKC.
Well, they sell out every night, and they've been on TV every night, so I'm sure they can find whatever. I'll put it this way: if Mike Brown's making $4.5 million, Scott Brooks will be making $6 million. So, if not more. So I'm pretty sure they can find that. With all the revenue and with all the press they've gotten, they'll be fine. Paying him is the least of their problems. The main concern has to be finding enough money to sign Ibaka and Harden. And they have the Steve Perkins, they have to do it. But that's their big concern. Paying Scotty Brooks shouldn't be a concern at all.
Okay, so finals, we got LeBron, Durant, we got Big Four versus the Big Three. What are you expecting from this series? Are you expecting a 7-gamer? Are you expecting? Is it going to disappoint people? And if it disappoints, why will it disappoint?
It won't disappoint. When you have the two best players in the league going at it, it definitely doesn't disappoint. Mm-hmm. You have the two best players going at it in their primes. I should repeat that. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing. We haven't had that kind of matchup in a very long time, probably since Mike and Carmelo, even though Mike was down prime, but still Mike. We haven't had a finals matchup this evenly matched and this kind of 1 versus 2 player at the peak of their careers. It's going to be a really good series. I mean, you have a lot of different storylines. You have a lot of guys, and you have guys in Harden and Ibaka. If they have memorable finals series, and if they play better than expectations, they're going to get max deals regardless. I mean, they're already good players, but if they have one of those series where, let's say, Harden averages 15 and 10 and 3 blocks, he's going to get paid.
Yeah.
Someone's going to give an offer sheet that is going to make OKC make a decision. Same thing with Harden. If Harden averages 20 bench, then hey, those are the type of things. In the finals, they make or break your value. When you play well in the finals, you tend to get overpaid. When you play bad in the finals, you tend to get paid either market value or slightly below, because that's what makes you. The finals, what you do on the finals is what makes or breaks you as a player.
Well, all the players from the Mavericks are living proof of that, of what you just said. I mean,
right.
Who would have in their right mind paid that kind of money to what's his name, to JJ Barea, or
right.
to who was the other? I mean, Tyson Chandler got overpaid. I mean, he ended up winning the Defensive Player of the Year and everything, but he got overpaid. And who from this team do you think? Like, I don't think you can overpay a guy like a James Harden. I just don't, because I think he's as valuable as any player in the league right now as it currently stands. He's as valuable. I mean, he could go to a team and be their starting point guard, but is he going to be that Manu Ginobili type where he just doesn't care and he's going to keep signing, or he's going to keep...
When you're 23, it's tough to take discounts at 23.
That's true.
You know, when you're young, you usually take top dollar. And the sticky thing for him is that he's a restrictor. Teams are going to offer him either the max or something very close to it, and OKC's going to have a decision to make. It's not like OKC's can just throw out a contract to him. If they let him get to the point where other teams are offering him big money deals, then they kind of get caught in a situation. But at the same time, he's a guy that, with his kind of ability, you have to try your best to sign him. You have to keep him. It's a very interesting point because at the draft, a lot of people didn't think OKC should have picked him. He was the third pick overall in that draft,
right?
And he went before Tommy Evans and Steph Curry and a couple other guys. And people were like, well, people thought that was the wrong pick at the time, but the best GMs always draft for fit, not necessarily the best player available, but who fits the best. And Harden fits the best in that system. It'd be very difficult to go get a two guard that just immediately fits with those guys, especially since they've grown up together. So he fits the best, and sometimes you have to pay a little extra for that fit, and he's worth it.
Do you think that he's? I've said this already. I think if it comes down to a decision, do you let him go and save the money for Ibaka, or do you keep Harden and let Ibaka go?
You always have to go with the big because there's not a whole lot of Serge Ibaka's around.
Right.
You can replace Harden's production in other ways. I mean, it would be very difficult to do so, but you can replace it. There's no replacing, 15 or 17 points a game with like 8 or 9 boards and 3 blocks. You don't replace that. There's not a lot of guys walking this earth that can do that. As good as Harden is, you can replace the two guard. Like I said, it'd be difficult because of the fit, but you can replace Harden to an extent. There's no replacing Ibaka. There's no replacing him. There's no other power forward in the league at this point in time that does what he does. Everything involved, from hitting 17-footers to rebounding to blocking shots, and probably the most agile defender at the power forward spot we've seen since probably Kevin Garnett in his prime.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a Garnett or probably not Garnett, but do you see a Ray Allen going to Miami, or do you?
That's the rumor.
You do see that? Do you think that's legit?
I see Ray Allen goes one of 3 teams. Either goes to DC, Miami, or the Clippers.
Well, no New York Knicks.
I can see that. I can see that. I can see it happening, but when you're older, you want to be with a contender. You know that you want to be with someone that has a chance to go to the conference finals. As good as the Knicks are, they're a couple moves away from being on that elite contender list.
They're more than a couple moves away from that.
No, you guys are one strong trade away from the Knicks.
Well,
I'm not sure what that trade is, but you guys are one strong trade, whether it's Amari or whomever, and getting the right pieces back. Away. So if Melo decides to work out this offseason instead of eating cheesesteaks and pizza, that would help as well.
Well, and people haven't talked about how they haven't had one. They didn't have an off season to put this together. Like, it was a lockout. Then they were all injured. Amari came in with Patrick Ewing like back problems, and he was a little out of shape. And then he punched a fire extinguisher. But
in the playoff series.
In the playoff series, correct.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, if
but I don't want to. The guy, everybody wants to get rid of Amari, and the only reason I don't want to get rid of Amari is because he's that guy. He was the guy that, I mean, I don't get any more fired up than when he had that, when he first got to New York and he had the Knicks are back. And whether that was true or not, there was a lack of pride in that organization. Nobody wanted to be classified as being a Knick. He took it on full head of steam. He wanted that to be his team. He wanted to be the guy. And then I don't know if he really wanted Melo or not, whether it is the case or not. He really it kind of changed him from his team, and then he got kind of thrown under the bus at some point where it was just Amari's not a team guy.
He's the best trades guy is just because of the contract and the injury. His contract kind of cripples what you guys can do in the future.
Yeah.
He has at 20 mil apiece, and his production doesn't match that kind of contract, and that's why people want to trade him and say he's the first to go. If he's healthy and he's right, he's he's one of the best power forwards in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't seen him right since Carmelo has came aboard.
Well,
and that's kind of a scary thing.
Well, once they separated him and Felton, that's when the wheels started to come off, because Felton was the best fit he's had. Well, it's stupid to say because it was the year after, but it was the best fit for him point guard wise, other than Nash.
Right.
And I mean, they both understood each other. They both liked each other, and they both made each other better. But back to a better topic, the NBA Finals. We got, all right. So LeBron, D Wade, Bosh. How does D Wade get a free pass even if he doesn't show up in this finals?
No, he's gotten a free pass enough this playoffs season. It's time for people to point the finger at him. The ring protection from 6 years ago, that has to stop. He has to be fully accountable. If people are going to bash LeBron for coming up short, they got to bash D Wade. I mean, D Wade's not a role player. He's a future Hall of Famer, one of the best shoot guards to ever play. He has to be held accountable just as much as LeBron and Bosh do. He's capable of playing well. That's why people get upset. It's not like he's a scrub. He's capable of playing very well and taking over a game at times. The reason why he's played well, though, or hasn't played well at times, is I thought that he may be not 100%, and maybe he's had some kind of injury, because you can kind of tell the explosiveness isn't there as it used to be, and the lift just isn't there. But if you're on the court, you got to play, and there's really no excuse to it. So if they come up short, and he comes up short specifically, you got to point the finger at him, because you can't keep on riding something that happened 6 years ago. You got it's present. There's no time like the present, and he can't just keep on riding something that happened 6 years ago when he shot 20 fame in the final series.
Right. Does he get more of a free pass because he's a more likable guy than LeBron right now?
No, he gets a free pass because he has a ring. Okay. That's the only reason why he has a free pass. If he didn't have a ring, the slander would be just as much. I mean, it's not like he's he's a likable guy to an extent, but at the same time, once you got through it with the Miami Heat in July 2010, all bets were off. So he has protection because of that one ring. That's it. And when that whole thing went down, the first thing that I thought was, this is a perfect situation for D Wade, because if they win, he's going to get all the credit. If they lose, he doesn't get any of the blame. And it's still, he got drafted by that team. It's his city, so he's in a lose-lose situation.
Does it bother you, or does it annoy you when Skip Bayless? I mean, obviously Skip Bayless is going to annoy everybody, but does it bother you that he calls Dwayne Wade Batman on this team? Because he's clearly not Batman, and he hasn't been even when, I haven't really seen a Dwayne Wade performance, regular season or postseason this year, where you're like, yeah, this is still Dwayne Wade's team. Even last year, I never got the impression that this was Dwayne Wade's team. What's
Skip Bayless? Well, I actually have an article about Skip Bayless coming out today on the opinionnation.com. But he's a Skip. Skip does what he does. It draws disturb controversy and drama. That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But he has to kind of realize that any team with LeBron James on it, LeBron is Batman. LeBron's the best player on the court. If he's on your team, he's the best player. He's Batman. The problems that he would have is the roles of the two star players, because it seems at times that LeBron doesn't want to get in the way of Dwayne Wade, and D Wade doesn't want to take a back seat to LeBron. Yeah. So you can kind of see that in some of the games, and that's some of the reasons why they haven't done as well as they should have. But no, with LeBron's team, I don't feel I feel almost like disrespectful as a sports fan, as a basketball fan, when Skip says stuff like that, because then other people, like the casual sports fan, will say something crazy like that, and it just makes things worse than what it is. LeBron doesn't get his just due in a lot of cases. A player of this magnitude, as great as he is, he should be loved more than he's hated. And a lot of that does stem from Skip Bayless and people at ESPN and a lot of the blogs out there. We won't see another LeBron James in our lifetime. We will not see another guy that's 6'8", 6'9", 270 pounds, with a 45-inch vertical, able to do the things he does. He also has great basketball skills. It's not that he's a physical specimen, because John Smith has the same measurables.
Right.
Doesn't have the basketball IQ or the feel for the game LeBron has. So we would never see LeBron James. So we have to cherish his game while we can, because once his game goes, man, we won't see LeBron, a guy like that, for a very long time, if not ever.
Oh no, you're not going to see a guy that can jump out of the building at what is he, 6'8"? 6'8", 6'9", at least 260. I'll give. He might be a little heavier now, but he's at least 260. Yeah, you're not going to see a guy that physical and that athletic. There's nobody to compare him to. I mean, like you can compare him to. I mean, anybody can compare. It's a lazy comparison to compare him to Magic, because it's the easiest one to compare him to. But Magic was never that athletic, and he was never that physical. Magic was just. I mean, he was a showman, and LeBron's. He's got some showmanship, but he's not he's a physical god, so to speak. And yeah, you're not going to see that kind of physicality. You're not going to see a guy that can jump like he can. And I mean, if you look at this wave of players, I mean, like Durant might be the only one that could put that kind of body on, but his game would be completely.
Durant's body's not like that, though.
I know, but like he could put that type of muscle on, but it would completely affect his game. There's never been anybody that could put on that kind of muscle and not have it affect their game for the negative.
Right. Well, Durant is a different type of beast, because I see Durant playing for 18 or 20 more years just because of the way his body is and the way his game is. When you're a shooter, your stroke doesn't leave you. Your shot doesn't leave you. That's what you do. And the way he's able to score with ease and the pounding his body's not going to take, he can play easily well into his 40s just based on how his game is. And all these records that Kobe's breaking and setting now, LeBron and Durant are going to bypass those. That's just how the game is going, because that's how great those guys are going to be.
Who do you think? Who do you think is going to break Kareem's scoring record, or who? Like, I mean, that's a lot to do. Kareem.
Kevin Durant will break that record. I will go on record right now saying Kevin Durant will break that record, and a big part of that is because of the three-point shot. The three-point shot is the way he's going to be able to shoot that in the next couple of years. He's going to be in a situation to where 15 years down the road, he's going to be approaching that record. I believe he's already at 10,000 already. I may be mistaken, but I know he's either at 10,000 or a little bit past it. And that's huge in itself, being only 23 years old. So he has 4 more. He has, to do that, 3 more times, get to that 10,000 point 3 more times in order to break that record. And I think he can do it. I think his skill set and in his prime of primes, he's going to be a 40% 3-point shooter, a 50% shooter from field, and 90% free throw shooter.
Right.
And when you're a 40, 50, 90 guy with his skill set and his age, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit.
Now, in this next couple, I mean, it's going to be a 2-week thing. Are they doing every other day again?
No, it's Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday.
Okay. Well, so game 1, what's your prediction? Who do you have winning? Who's going to be, how much does LeBron go for? How much does Durant go for?
I have OKC winning at home. They're tough to beat at home. They're tough to beat with that crowd. Their players play better. Their role players play better. The Daquan Cooks, the Collisons, those guys, and even Derek Fisher now, if he's on the squad, he's going to play well. He plays well regardless, but for his role, whatever. But their role players play well at home. They feed off the energy, and I see them getting out to a 1-0 lead tonight. I see LeBron going for about 32. I see Durant matching him with the same amount, and the difference is going to be Westbrook and Harden. Miami doesn't have enough perimeter defenders to put on those guys, so there's going to be a mismatch there. And if you have Harden on the floor against Shane Battier or Mario Chalmers, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty because he's either going to light them up from the outside or get foul trouble on the bigs that they do have, and that's just not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. So I see Oklahoma winning by 6 or 7 points tonight. I can see that.
Who's your biggest X factor in the series for both teams?
Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka for Oklahoma City, because when he's playing right, they're unbeatable. He pretty much flipped that San Antonio series when he went off in that game 4, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. When he went off like that, San Antonio or any other team has an answer for that. When your 4th option goes off like that or is capable of doing that, no other team has an answer for that. He's the X factor. If he plays well, he stays out of foul trouble, OKC will not lose this series. The X factor for Miami is Mario Chalmers. He is their point guard. He's a point guard. He makes some mistakes here or there, but when he's on, he can hit that open 3. He plays decent defense. I don't expect him to slow down Westbrook or anything, but he's going to have to hit his shots because in all the series, Westbrook has had a huge advantage over the opposing point guard. In the first series, he went against Jason Kidd. The second series, he went against Ramon Sessions and Steve Blake. Last series, he played well against Tony Parker. So Mario Chalmers doesn't have to match Westbrook per se, but he has to, at least show him that he's there and kind of make the stats comparable. Because if he's having a cold series, it might be a short series because you can't let Westbrook go off and Harden go off and Durant, because Durant's going to get his. But you can't have Westbrook go off and Harden and all those guys, and then it's not going to happen for Miami if that happens.
Would you rather have a guy like with this? I mean, who's been the most disappointing signing for the Heat thus far? Would you say? I mean, Shane Battier, I'd say, has been the most disappointing thus far. Are you on board with that, or what do you think?
I'm not a big Shane Battier fan. For a guy that's supposed to be an elite defender, he gets lit up more than any elite defender I've ever seen. And he pretty much peaked as a player 3 or 4 years ago. So I really don't think that he's a great signing. But the Mike Miller signing is bad, and also the Joel Anthony signing.
Yeah.
Joel Anthony, and I went to school with him. We both went to UNLV at the same time. I just think for the amount of money he's getting paid for what he does, I think the Joel Anthony signing is probably the worst one, because they could get another to affect the team in better ways.
Last thing before I let you go, who wins the series? How many games? And who sits front row at the? Who's a celebrity that sits front row at the first Thunder game?
Well, I believe Lil Wayne will be there. I do believe he'll be there, one way or another. I have OKC in 6. I said it at the beginning of the playoffs. I've said it last series. I'm going to say it again. I think they have the best and the most balanced team. They're peaking at the right time, and they have some of the advantage Miami that there's nothing Miami can do about. The biggest thing is Miami usually uses their athleticism and speed to overwhelm opponents. Mm-hmm. They can't do that with OKC because OKC has the same athleticism and they may even have more speed.
Right.
So that's not an advantage Miami has. The only advantage Miami has is losing in the last finals and having that extra motivation. I'm not short again. But as of today, I'm going with the best team. Also going with the team with the home court advantage because winning a game in Oklahoma City will require a couple of amazing performances, and I don't see the Heat role players up to task with that. I don't see them being able to do that. So I'm going to go with OKC in 6. I know that's probably a little cliche right now, but I like how they've been playing. Westbrook is kind of, he's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to make his little mistakes here and there, but for the most part, in that series versus Spurs, he was the difference maker as well with Ibaka. His defense on Tony Parker, and also his ability to get to the paint against Tony Parker is what changed that series as well. So I like OKC. I really do.
And you want to tell everybody where they can read you at Opinion Nation?
I'm at OpinionNation.com. I do columns, anything from pop to sports to whatever you want. If you want an interesting perspective on whatever's going on currently in the sports or pop world, I try to give the people what they want. And that's pretty much about it. Also on Twitter at TheRealJamieson.com. That's where you can find me at. And any questions you can always ask. And that's pretty much about it. And I also want to give a small shout out to a few of my friends, Nick and Kaylin. We've been playing basketball since 3rd grade, and a couple other people, Brandon Theus, he's a good friend of mine. We always talk basketball. And also the young cats that I had dinner with the other night, Alec, Evan, and Mike, they also talk basketball all the time. So just want to give a quick shout out to them. And I'm looking forward to a great series. I'm also looking forward to see two of the players of our lifetime just go at it for 6 or 7 games.
Me as well. I'm happy to have you on, and we'll have to do this again maybe before they head down to Miami, or even after Game 1. Whatever you want. Whenever you want to come back on and talk some more NBA.
I'm off all week, so I can. My time is whatever. I can do it whenever.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's we'll plan for something this week again, and maybe maybe tomorrow or something, and we'll get another show going. Hopefully, talk about LeBron and Durant both going off for 60 and the greatest fun.
That'd be fun.
So, all right, Jamieson. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to having you on again.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep.